Akshay Thakur, Vinay Sharma, Pawan Gupta and Mukesh Singh were sentenced to death by a trial court in 2013. The four were hanged in the capital's high-security Tihar prison in the first executions in India since 2015. The victim died from her injuries days after being raped by 6 men on a moving bus. The incident caused outrage and led to new anti-rape laws in India. The 23-year-old physiotherapy student was dubbed Nirbhaya, the fearless one, by the press as she could not be named under Indian law. 6 people were arrested for the attack. One of them, Ram Singh, was found dead in jail in March 2013, having apparently taken his own life. Another, who was 17 at the time of the attack, was released in 2015 after serving 3 years in a reform facility, the maximum term possible for a juvenile in India. In the last few months, all 4 convicts filed petitions in the Supreme Court in a bid to reduce their sentences to life imprisonment. But the top court rejected their petitions, leaving the men with no other legal recourse. A last-minute appeal to have the death penalties commuted was also rejected hours before the executions. Minutes after the convicts were hanged on Friday morning, the victim's mother said, "I hugged my daughter's photograph and told her we finally got justice." Her father said that his faith in the judiciary had been restored. Security was tight outside the prison with a large number of police and paramilitary personnel deployed to maintain law and order. A group of people carrying placards had gathered outside the prison gates and began celebrating after the executions were announced. Some chanted death to rapists and waved posters thanking the judiciary. What happened to Nirbhaya? The student boarded an off-duty bus at around 20:30 local time on December 16, 2012 with a male friend. They were returning home after watching a film at an upscale mall. The 6 men, who were already on board, attacked the couple, taking turns to rape the woman, before brutally assaulting her with an iron rod. Her friend was beaten. They were then thrown out onto the roadside to die. Some passers-by found them naked and bloodied and called the police. 2 weeks later, after widespread protests that demanded India to reckon with its treatment of women, the victim died in a hospital in Singapore, where she was taken for further treatment after her condition deteriorated in a Delhi hospital. How did India react to the crime? "Wake up India, she's dead," screamed one newspaper headline, announcing her death. The horrific crime triggered a firestorm of protests in India, in ways that had not really been seen before. The capital came to a standstill as protesters occupied the main streets. Authorities even temporarily closed some metro stations in a bid to stop people from gathering. Thousands of furious protesters, mostly young women and men, still turned up at India Gate in the center of the city, prompting police to use water cannons to disperse the crowds. Protests continued in Delhi and several other cities for a fortnight, the number of days it took the victim to succumb to her injuries. The Delhi government tried to halt rising public anger by announcing a series of measures intended to make the city safer for women, more police night patrols, checks on bus drivers and their assistants, and the banning of buses with dark windows or curtains. The attack became an inflection point, galvanizing a national debate on the treatment of women. Public outrage over the crime mounted again in 2015 when the BBC broadcast a documentary called India's Daughter, which included an interview with one of the convicts who blamed the victim for what happened to her. In India, the documentary caused a big enough stir that resulted in the film being banned. Television news channels that were supposed to broadcast the film ran a blank screen instead.